Welcome to the extraordinary game of life. I've read some pretty incredible books over the course of my short lifetime. So many books that have changed my mindset, that have changed the way I see life, the way I show up to my everyday life. I have read so many eye-opening books on spiritual awakening, how to find peace in the everyday chaos of life, and how to work towards that state of bliss, nirvana, or in other words, enlightenment. There are honestly so many books I could sit here and recommend to you today that I know will have a life-changing impact on your life. However, there is one specific book, and in particular, one specific chapter that has had the greatest impact on my own spiritual journey thus far. And it's through this one singular chapter alone that I've been able to learn so many of the most powerful concepts when it comes to waking up, when it comes to realizing the illusion that life is a beautiful game and it's meant to be played. And it's this one chapter that I could honestly say has probably been the greatest source of wisdom and knowledge that I have come to experience so far. And I can't wait to share that wisdom with you in today's video. So how does this chapter exactly describe this incredible process of waking up, of enlightenment? What are the tools that it shares with us that allow us to start deconstructing this illusion of life, to start finally seeing the truth for what it is? I think the best way for us to do that today is to pick up the Kindle. Let's read a couple of the most powerful moments in this chapter, and then we'll break it down and discuss the incredibly powerful concepts that this man by the name of Anthony DeMello discusses in his incredible book, Awareness. For those of you who want to read along, we are on page 48, at least on this version, and the chapter is called How Happiness Happens. Come home to yourself. Observe yourself. That's why I said earlier that self-observation is such a delightful and extraordinary thing. After a while, you don't have to make any efforts, because as illusions begin to crumble, you begin to know things that cannot be described. It's called happiness. Everything changes and you become addicted to awareness. There's the story of a disciple who went to the master and said, "Could you give me a word of wisdom? Could you tell me something that would guide me through my days?" It was the master's day of silence. So he picked up a pad. It said, awareness. When the disciple saw it, he said, "This is too brief. Can you expand on it a bit more?" So the master took back the pad and wrote, awareness, awareness, awareness. I swear, half of these enlightened gurus are actually low-key trolls. The more I read stories about these enlightened masters, the more I truly believe that they share the same fundamental belief that we have on this channel, which is life is a game, right? And they clearly don't take it very seriously because they always do these funny and interesting little things to their disciples that, yeah, they're just worth a laugh. So life isn't so serious. And that is one of the points that we will get to very shortly. That's what it is to watch yourself. No one can show you how to do it because he would be giving you a technique. He would be programming you. But watch yourself. When you talk to someone, are you aware of it or are you simply identifying with it? When you get angry with someone, were you aware that you were angry? Or were you simply identifying with your anger? Later on, when you had the time, did you study your experience and attempt to understand it? Where did it come from? What brought it on? You only change what you understand. I think this is the most powerful point in this entire chapter. You can only change what you understand. And that self-awareness is truly the key, at least the first step to enlightenment, to waking up. What you do not understand, you are not aware of. You repress. You don't change. But when you understand it, it changes. That was a solid click. Damn. I messed it up. How much of a truth bomb was that? I mean, that's crazy. You will fear no one and you will fear nothing. Isn't that extraordinary? You'll live like a king, like a queen. This is what it truly means to live like royalty. Not this rubbish like getting your picture in the newspapers or having a lot of money. That is a lot of rot. You fear no one because you are perfectly content to be nobody. You don't give a damn about success or failure. They mean nothing. If you make a fool of yourself, that means nothing either. Isn't that a wonderful state to be in? People think that if they had no cravings, they would be like deadwood. But in fact, they'd lose their tension. Get rid of your fears of fatigue, your tensions about succeeding, and you will be yourself. relaxed. You wouldn't be driving with your brakes on. There's a lovely saying by a great Chinese sage that goes something like this. When the archer shoots for no particular prize, he has all of his skills. When he shoots to win a brass buckle, he is already nervous. When he shoots for a gold prize, he goes blind, sees 2 targets, and is out of his mind. His skill has not changed, but the prize divides him. He cares. He thinks more of winning than of shooting, and the need to win drains him of his power. Isn't that an image of what most people are? When you're living for nothing, you've got all of your skills. You've got all of your energy. You are relaxed. It doesn't matter whether you win or you lose. You don't care. Now that's human living for you. That is what life is all about. Let's skip to the final part of this chapter. We were told that happiness is a smooth complexion, a holiday resort. It isn't those things, but we have a subtle way of making our happiness depend on those things. We say, I refuse to be happy until my neurosis goes away. I have good news for you. There's only one reason why you're not experiencing bliss at this present moment, and it's because you are thinking or focusing on what you don't have. But right now, you have everything you need to be in bliss. Holy moly, if this wasn't valuable, I would drop it like my microphone. But how crazy is that chapter, and how profound are the various lessons that we kind of touched on there? And let's kind of take a moment now to go through a few of those lessons and just show you that if you really take on a few of these points that DeMello has raised, your life has no choice but to change, and your illusions have no choice but to dissolve. Above all else, I truly believe that in that chapter lies perhaps the most powerful and prominent tool to enlightenment, to waking up. And that is the tool of self-observation. Being aware of oneself, one's thoughts, one's patterns, one's feelings, one's reactivity. Being able to be the witness of phenomena, to step back and to truly see things as they are and not as they appear to be. The cliche goes, everything starts with self-awareness, because you cannot change what you aren't aware of. It's in your ability to disidentify, to take a step back from the thoughts and feelings that bombard you on a daily, hourly, minutely basis, if that's even a word. It's only then that you can truly see that perhaps the ways you are acting are not effective. Perhaps the way you are showing up in the world, to the people you love, to your job, to your goals and your passions and your animals, your pets, right? The way you show up in the world may be unconscious. We fall back asleep, as DeMello would say. We are not consciously awake and alive in our own lives. And that's a massive problem. Just because we're having a bad feeling doesn't mean that that feeling is going to be us forever. You're angry for 1 minute, maybe even a day if it's like a serious problem, and then you move on. The anger naturally arises and it falls away. The same as the negative beliefs. You might think 1 minute that, I'm not really worth much. Why would this person want to talk to me? Why do I deserve this job promotion? And then suddenly the next day you're on this massive ego trip where you think you are God's gift to the earth. And I truly think that most people try to keep that state of confidence high. That's what they teach you on self-improvement YouTube videos all over the internet, how to maintain that flow state of confidence and, arrogance and I'm the best and I'm Sigma male grindset, right? The answer is actually to allow those fluctuations. It's not to identify with the moments when you feel like an alpha male, and at the same time, not to identify with the moments that you feel like you aren't really worth much at all. And I think perhaps the ultimate takeaway is that when you see things for what they truly are, instead of believing in this illusion, it's in the awareness of what the truth is that things start to change all on their own. If you look at certain moments throughout your life when things really took a turn for you, you might realize that a lot of that change came about purely based on your new understanding of the world. It came about based on a mindset shift that occurred to you, and not so much about the action or the energy that you put into forcing something to change, making something be the way that it was not meant to be. It's when you finally understood things as a whole and you saw the wood from the trees, so to speak. It's then that things changed all on their own, with or without your help. As an example, in my personal life, I struggled with giving up alcohol for many, many years. I truly had this fundamental belief that alcohol made me happy. It helped me transcend negative mood states. It helped me be more social, more confident, attract more women, you name it. I thought that alcohol was this magical miracle drug, right? Kind of like liquid luck from Harry Potter, that fixed all of my problems. And it wasn't until I finally had a moment where I saw alcohol for what it truly was. Nothing but a drug that changes and alters your mind state so that you become unconscious to the world. And as we know, and as we've mentioned right now, it's in the awareness, it's in the consciousness of waking up to life. That is where we find our true bliss, our true sanity, our true happiness. And I realized that alcohol was a direct hindrance from that state of mind. I couldn't be present. I couldn't be in the moment when I was drinking. And I realized that alcohol no longer served me. And it's almost as though a miracle switch just went off, and suddenly all my desire to stop drinking and all this force and energy that I had been putting in to really just get away from it, I was just really pushing it down. It's only when I realized the truth about the drug that all of a sudden change became effortless. Another key lesson that DeMello raises in this chapter is that through the process of self-observation, through the process of simply observing life as it is, you start to realize that there really is nothing to fix, right? Life, inherently as it is fine. There is nothing really wrong with the state of affairs, and it's our human minds and our beliefs about situations that cause us to identify situations, people, events as either positive or negative, and this is what causes the majority of your suffering. Many of you may have read about detachment theory, the backwards law, letting things flow with the way of life. It's a very Taoist mentality and a very spiritually liberating way to view life. And DeMello argues or shows us that by self-observation, by becoming aware of phenomena around us, we really do realize that life doesn't need a lot of tempering. It doesn't need your continuous monitoring and watching and fixing and strategizing. And if anything else, it's those things that take away the beauty of life. It's those things that make you so unconscious to the present moment that you realize that you spend your entire life trying to fix life, to overcome things. And you realize that in the process of fixing the problem, you forgot to enjoy the experience, which is actually, paradoxically, the whole point of this experience. To have the experience and to enjoy it as much as you possibly can. And again, going back to disidentifying, to allow the motions to come and go and to be detached from the outcome. Awareness and self-observation, like the backwards law, have this very paradoxical effect of firstly, freeing you from that need to have a certain outcome, that need for things to go a specific way that would make me happy, that would bring me peace. It makes you realize that by stepping back and allowing life to unfold, you firstly have the advantage of releasing yourself from stress, from tension, from anxiety of always believing you can control every single outcome. But secondly, and even more paradoxically, you realize that it's by letting go. It's by simply observing the problems or the perceived problems that you have in your life that tends to be the answer to getting the problem solved. It's by releasing the attachment to outcome that usually brings you the desired outcome that you wanted all along. And it's through the observing of these feelings and these desires and these attachments that starts to bring about the unraveling of truth, the dissolving of these illusions. Life is inherently ever-changing. Nothing lasts forever. And that is where our true freedom lies. And that is what you learn through the process of self-observation. And it's our job to wake up to these illusions of control so that we can relax, take a deep breath, and enjoy the experience for whatever it is. And finally, at the end of this chapter, we read about the practice of gratitude, about being aware to life's many vast reasons to be appreciative of what you have in your life. And I think a lot of us on a daily basis tend to focus on the things, again, that we can't control, but more so than that, we tend to focus on the things that don't bring us happiness, on what could be going better, what could be working out instead of what actually is happening. And if we were just to humor ourselves and to swap that mindset around and say, you know what, let me rather look at the things that I can be grateful for. The fact that I have running water in my house, the fact that I have a family that loves me, that I have a job that sustains me. It's by focusing on the things that we can be appreciative of, the things that are going right. That is where true bliss comes from. I truly believe that gratitude may be the very one thing that you can always find a consistent source of happiness and energy from. Because no matter what situation you are in, no matter what your life circumstance looks like at this current stage, you always have a reason to be grateful. And so my challenge to you today is to firstly, practice the art of self-observation. Just simply allow yourself to watch yourself in whatever you do, as though, like DeMello says, you are a third person, as though you are watching a character in a video game. Because you kind of are. And your second challenge is to go down to the comment section and to comment something that you are personally grateful for today. Big or small, share your gratitude with others, and it's through the sharing that we can finally start to appreciate the beauty of life just as it is. As you can clearly see, I could go on and on about this amazing book, Awareness by Anthony DeMello, and I could still unpack so much of what this chapter has to offer. So if you are interested in more ideas behind this whole process of enlightenment, how to demystify it so that it actually becomes something simple and practical for you to use in your everyday life. And if you simply want to hear more about my insights into this incredible chapter in this incredible book, then watch this video next. And if all else fails, my friend, ask yourself, if life was a game, how would I play?